Today we're watching basically JJK versus JJBA. I started making JJK content and I've already been making JoJo content, so I was like, why not mix them up, do all of that. Hello Purple. Mix them all up together, you know, do all of that. I'm currently at 762 subscribers. Let's get to 800 by the end of the month. I'm recording, I'm not gonna say what date I'm recording this on, but let's just say it like this. I'm recording this 2 days before it's released.
I put out a poll on my channel asking people about the outcome of this fight, mainly for fun.
Gotta be JoJo,
after
right?
reading some of the comments and seeing the results,
Gotta be JoJo.
I decided to make a video on it.
Better be JoJo.
Surprisingly, the results were heavily in favor of the JoJos.
And it fucking
I
better
don't think
be.
it's as one-sided and
Also,
easy
of course,
as
there's gonna be hella spoilers in this.
For both series ahead.
It's not like you can start watching JJK without seeing spoilers. I'm talking to you specifically, you Adam. Huh? I asked bro for like one question about this thing.
Oh man, you know this character dies. Dude, this guy gets a power up and he just fucking he goes insane. He's the greatest of the show. Don't get me started on this character. In the manga,
that is him. I'm not gonna say I know the series, but like, might as well just go ahead and see what happens.
Includes every original JoJo, so that means Jonathan, Joseph, Jotaro, Josuke, Giorno, and Jolene. And for the poll, we used Tokyo's Jujutsu students, so that includes anyone, living or dead, who was a student in 2018. So Yuji's class, Yuta's class, and Hikari's class, each of which is really small. Rule 2. Everybody in this video will be alive. A good chunk of people in this video from both series have died at some point, so everyone is resurrected here. Rule 3, like every battle I cover, verses are going to be equalized.
Okay.
And final rule, the objective is killing the other side. Everybody is bloodlusted here.
Okay.
Also, a few quick side notes. Joseph is going to be his part 2 self because that's his prime.
As he should
won't
be.
have a stand, and of course Jonathan's not going to have a stand because he
don't need
used his own stand.
He don't need
even though he does technically have one.
He don't need
Since they didn't have stands in their prime, we're not going to give them that.
He's whooping the fuck out of whoever he's
Giorno
fighting.
Will have Requiem. Yuji won't have Sukuna, and Yuta will be in his original body.
Oh!
And Maki will also be at her peak because Mai isn't here anyways. The main concern would have been Giorno because obviously it's an insta-win if he has Requiem.
Of course.
But the other 3 things are important to note as well. Everyone is at their strongest.
Jotaro's clapping whoever he's fighting. Josuke's probably clapping whoever he's fighting. Giorno is clapping whoever he's fighting, so I could see Jonathan losing. I honestly could see Joseph losing, which I hate that, but I could see it happening. And Jolene's smart. I think she could, and I say plus she has a stand, I think she could take it.
The other strong characters are hitting massively hypersonic or far lower. And these speeds aren't even hit until the Cullen game, very late on actually. This is based on Hikari's fight with Kashimo, as well as the fact that some of these people could do anything against Sukuna in general. So in terms of this battle, that includes Yuji, Yuta, and Maki, as well as Hikari obviously. Every other student is just, well, not really too impressive at all. Even Megumi doesn't really have anything to place him much higher, unless really. So as for the Joestars, they are really fast, primarily with their stands. But even Jonathan and Joseph without stands scale pretty high. Even Jonathan without a stand was fighting on par with Dio, who's comparable to his part 3 self, who has massively faster than light feats. Anyone with a stand is in this rage, and even Jonathan and Joseph are. Even if we look at Sukuna and Kashimo, the fastest in JJK by
I still think
margin,
they might lose. I think Joseph might
really
lose, to be honest. I ain't seen the
Speed
matchups,
is very
though.
clearly in favor of the JoJos.
Of course.
And I think that's part of why a lot of people voted so overwhelmingly for them, as well as some other things we'll cover. But next on to attack power and durability, because this is an area where some of the JJK characters are advantaged.
Really?
A good chunk of them are weaker, around city block level, maybe even a bit lower, while some of them are town level or higher. Although we don't have much to go off of for Kirara. For the 4 heavy hitters, I like to regard them as around town level, if not large town level. As for the JoJos, Jotaro is stated to have the strongest stand physically, and his best feats such as clearing fog place him around small town level. So even though they're not on the level of Star Platinum, they should be relatively
They're still pretty
close.
strong, yeah.
In terms of physical power, Gold Experience is the weakest one here,
but
ranked as a C in terms of power.
You got that ability,
So as you can see, power-wise, this is actually relatively close. And in my eyes, I feel I'm being relatively conservative on each side for this. Personally, I'd like to highball each of them higher than this, but we're going to go with these assumptions.
No point on wanking, just let's get
So
on
it's
to
more
it.
important to look at the actual abilities here. First, we'll look at the JJK students. To begin, Yuji has Cleave and Dismantle obviously, although it's a little weak at this point, but he also has blood manipulation and likely poisoning from it too.
Okay.
Although one area where he really excels is the soul attacks. Yuji can perceive and attack the soul, not just with his regular physical attacks, but also his Cleave and Dismantle.
Can't wait to see that
attack
animated.
the soul, which is pretty huge. Not to mention, he has a domain, which we will be getting to later on. Then there's Megumi. He has 10 shadows, with Maharaga obviously being insane.
Big
Even
Raga?
if he'll attack everybody in the process.
Big Raga?
But the other shadows are helpful in their own ways too.
Oh, it's gonna do
Each
a
have
battle
their own
royale. It's not
effects.
gonna be a.
Then there's Yuta with his copy
1v1 each
technique.
time?
We'll say here for this video, he'll only be able to copy techniques from those around him. He's copied Shrine before, and of course Curse Speech too. Not to mention he has Rika with him for a lot of extra attack
So is
power,
he gonna be able to
as well as
copy-
bringing in weapons and stuff.
Is he gonna be able to copy the world?
Then there's Hikari with Idle Death Gamble, which will be really helpful here.
What does
We'll
that
assume
do?
he hits jackpot because he always hits jackpot. Always bet on Hikari. But that makes him effectively unkillable. As for Nobara, unfortunately she was cut short before we saw her full potential, so speed-wise she's not going to be able to do much here. But if she is able to attack someone, her soul attacks will be really useful against stronger opponents.
She's still gonna
Even
get her
if
ass
striking
popped.
power isn't really that high compared to some of the other people here, and even if she can't attack them easily, there is one thing she can do. Soul Resonance will be really useful. She just needs a piece of one of the JoJos somehow, and then she'll be able to attack that way, directly harming the soul, and not needing to worry about the speed advantage. Kirara's here too, and even though we don't really have great feats,
I don't know who she is.
as for Maki, there's obviously no curse technique to cover for her. Basically just insane strength and strategy, and a slight amount of regeneration.
Okay.
We'll just give her the split soul katana here.
She gonna
And
get fucked up
finally,
too.
we have Panda. Of course, we're using him at his peak too, so he has all of his cores intact. Although, it is just Panda after all. Sorry, Panda. Jonathan and Joseph have Hamon, enhancing their physical power, letting them imbue it into objects,
Okay.
and also some level of healing.
That's what I'm saying.
Jojo's
They-
abilities are obviously raw power.
Everybody
and
with a
time stop.
stand, I think, is gonna
Also,
take theirs.
Starfinger. Josuke and Giorno are both healers here. Josuke can't heal himself though.
So it is gonna be a
but
battle
Giorno can
royale
heal
then.
others. Crazy Diamond lets Josuke restore things. And Giorno has a bunch of other abilities with gold experience. Even without gold experience Requiem, he is a huge threat. He can imbue things with life. And I think one of the strongest abilities of his here is the fact that he can reflect damage. Like for example, if he creates an animal and that animal takes damage, that damage gets reflected. And of course, Jolene can turn her body into string. Even though stands are tangible and visible in this video, stands have been shown to go through people before, just like they can go through objects.
Okay.
Star Platinum was able to grab Jotaro's heart, and Joseph's too. Plus, other stands like Beach Boy and Diver Down can do things like this, but can this be done to anybody with any sort of stand?
Maybe.
If so, the stand users could hypothetically just do that here. With their greater speed, they could just send their stands to stop everyone's heart or something, and that's an instant win. But personally, I don't think that's something that every stand could do because
Probably
there are other
not.
cases where they could have done this. Like, think of the times we've seen it. It doesn't seem like a stand could do this with everybody. Outside of stands that specifically work this way, the only other example we have is Jotaro. The 2 times he did this were on himself and on a dead
And
body.
he's dead, yeah.
We've never seen this
So
done
you probably
in a combat
can't-
situation
possibly
where, for
can't
example,
do it to
Jotaro
a
is fighting some
person. That
random
makes
person and
sense.
just grabs their heart. Plus, an example against this is the fact that Josuke had to punch through his mom to get Aqua Necklace, a stand which also gets trapped later on, and can't just phase through what it's trapped in. Stands can go into people and shrink too, even being tangible in those cases, like in the fight against lovers. All those stands had to be shrunk down, and they were tangible there. The only instance of this being done on another person was when Star Platinum did this to Joseph, who was dead.
Okay, yeah,
In
so
my
I
eyes, there's
wouldn't.
two
I wouldn't use
explanations
that
for this.
then. I wouldn't
One,
use it.
Star Platinum is one of the few stands that can do this with no restrictions. Or 2, some stands such as Star Platinum can do this, but only to inanimate objects or their users. If the former is true, then Jotaro could time stop and just fuck up everyone's organs one by one.
Well, yeah.
If the latter is true, which
So I
think is
wouldn't-
the case,
I wouldn't
then
give
this
him
is
it. I
irrelevant.
wouldn't give him it.
Still
That
worth
makes
covering
sense.
because that would be an instant win, and people would probably bring this up
Nah,
regardless.
I'd win though.
So I'm
Nah,
gonna
I'd
go with
win.
the second assumption here, because that seems more likely in my eyes, unless I am.
Gojo's
forgetting
not in this. He probably
Now
not
for
in.
the
This is
actual
all
fight.
students.
The JoJo
Let's get Gojo versus Requiem, bro. Honestly, if he was here, he probably would have been. Probably would have had to change it to Gojo's Bizarre Adventure, huh? Because he would have kicked everybody's ass. I assume. I don't think so, but it probably would have happened
Even with the
knowing this
strength being,
shit.
this fight is definitely more in favor of the JoJo side, but since we already know that, I'm going to focus more on what the JJK side could possibly do.
So he's probably gonna
And more
wank them so
specifically
they
why
can
they're a
kind
bigger
of get a
threat than
closer
people
matchup, but
realize.
Jojo's still
For
gonna
one,
win.
Hikari is invincible. The JoJos can speed blitz him, but if he's able to pop a jackpot, that'll make things much tougher for them. He'll be virtually unkillable, especially with higher durability to boot. Jotaro and Giorno are the only ones I think would have any chance of killing him while he's invincible, and even then it would be really tough. Jotaro would use time stop and Giorno would use damage reflection, or somehow using an animal to help him.
Okay.
However, with the former, even with his strength and time stop, Jotaro might not be able to do any real damage to him. Like if he lands some attacks in time stop, he doesn't have the power to destroy Hikari completely.
What's stopping him from
and
just
given
walking
how
up and
crazy
breaking his
durable
neck? How
Hikari
strong
like
is
this,
Hikari? I don't know who
even just
Hikari is. How
destroying his
strong
head
is
in
he?
Time stop would be pretty tough, unless
Okay.
he's not reinforced during that time stop. Call Hikari a punch kick merchant all you want, but he's one of the biggest threats here, if not the biggest threat on the JJK side. Also, Yuta's domain is a huge issue. Speed doesn't matter when you could just get a guaranteed attack. Given the greater attack power on Yuta's side, he could actually take out one of the JoJos just with that. Of course, it depends on what ability he pulls out in his domain.
They probably
and
only do it
particularly
once
what
then,
he has
huh?
at his disposal. But this gives Yuta a path to victory too. And remember, we're just using the abilities of the people around him. This would be even crazier if he had other abilities, for example, like Gojo's, or even Kenjaku's. Because in this case, if he had Kenjaku's ability, with him being bloodlusted and doing anything possible to win here,
Probably
he would
take
have
over
probably
one of the-
swapped with someone in this
Probably
case.
take over one of the
Like
JoJo's
stronger
body and
JoJos.
like.
And that would be
Yeah.
game over.
Oh
But
shit.
even
Yeah.
with just the abilities of those around
That'd
him,
be
this would
cold.
be huge. Like him copying Nobara's ability in his domain, that would guarantee a hit, and it would be to the soul and do enough damage to actually kill people. And as of the time of recording, Yuji also does have a domain. We have no clue what it does yet, but having a sure hit effect is pretty important. That will definitely be very valuable in this fight, especially with Yuji being one of the strongest people here.
But he's still
Not
getting
just in his
fucked
own
up.
verse, but one of the strongest characters in the entire battle, with a domain that gives him a guaranteed hit, making speed pretty much a non-factor. Not to mention, Maharaga is an option. Could it adapt his stance in general? I feel like that's a stretch. But individual abilities? Definitely. Star Platinum and Gold Experience would be important ones to adapt to.
Bro ended up
Theoretically, he might
attacking
even be
y'all,
able to
though.
adapt to the
I don't
greater
know.
speed and find some sort of workaround, such as a way to guarantee a hit somehow, for example. He can adapt to any phenomena. Megumi also has the other 10 shadows at his disposal, although only the tame ones will be useful for him. Inumaki could actually be a huge threat here.
Oh, yeah.
The JoJos are definitely fast enough to dodge Cursed Speech, but there are issues too. And this applies to Yuta as well. For one, how would they know it's coming and how to dodge it? After seeing it once, sure, but off the bat, they probably
No,
won't
so if they
realize
did it
that
right away, it
Inumaki
wouldn't
attacks by
work, yeah.
talking. Afterwards, they could just get out of range when he opens his mouth, but the first time this happens, they likely won't realize. Immobilizing them with sleep or don't move off the bat would be huge, especially if Yuta coordinates this with him and they both use it at once. And while it's stressful, Inumaki and Yuta can make people explode with this, or even contort their bodies, although that probably wouldn't affect Jolene much. Yuta actually used this to outright kill before, and Inumaki might have this as well. Plus, he could even use a tape recorder apparently. You can protect yourself from cursed speech, but only if you could use cursed energy on your ears to mitigate it. Plus, you'll have to even recognize this is a threat in the first place. With Yuta, it's probably a bit more obvious with the megaphone he has, but otherwise, this is a consideration too. And of course, soul attacks are another big thing. So, weaker characters that can't necessarily harm others, at least in normal circumstances, their soul attacks would really help here.
Yeah,
For
but
Yuji, he does have the attack.
not
power to
gonna
actually
lie,
harm
not gonna
others,
lie.
but attacking the soul is a huge
Navarro's
help
getting
too.
speed
And
blitzed.
if he does cut off
She don't
a
even
piece
get
of
a
one
shot,
of the JoJos,
dude.
for example, like he slices off a finger or something, then Nobara could directly use resonance on that, and that's a really huge advantage. Plus, Maki with a soul split katana would be really helpful. Hitting them would be an issue though. I do think this fight is clearly in the Joestar's favor, but at the same time, I think people really underestimate how easy it is for them. In terms of physical strength, the fight is actually pretty fairly matched. But even the fastest JJK characters can't compete with the slowest JoJos.
Right.
If this were a regular battle without verse equalization, then the JoJos would have even greater advantages. With stands being invisible, that would make this fight basically impossible, unless Maki's perception is somehow good enough to sense them, but that's just her.
I kind of wish he would have like done it as like matchups instead of a battle royale, because then it would have been cool. Like 1v1 v1v1 and shit like that. I mean, they still that's how I came into the video thinking it was gonna. I'm still gonna leave it like that's how I came into the video thinking it was gonna go. So I was wrong, but yeah. I mean, JoJo claps. JoJo claps. Ibby JoJo claps. You should watch JoJo. People that are watching my channel, they already watch JoJo, I assume. Like and subscribe, leave a comment. 762, okay? Get to 800 by the end of the month.